Okay, hi everyone and welcome. I'm Adam Berezin from MS Dynamics World, and I want to thank everybody for joining us for today's session, Achieving Time Tracking Nirvana in Microsoft Dynamics GP. Today's event will be presented by Brian Maxon from Journyx. We're very happy to have Brian here with us today. So before we get started, I'd like to quickly mention that you can submit any questions you have during the session through the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. Brian will be sure to try to get to all of them at the end of the event. So without further delay, please allow me to welcome our presenter, Brian Maxon.
Great. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate that. Guys, thanks for taking the time this morning. Just to give you a little bit of background about Journyx, we're actually based in Austin, Texas. We've got about 1,200 or so customers, and we've been doing this time and expense tracking and resource management thing for a little over 20 years now. And we've got a sort of proven integration and solution within Dynamics GP. Just to give you a feel for what some of those customers look like, these are some of our existing GP customers. You can see they're from all different types of industries, whether they be public utilities or home health care, management consulting companies, so all over the sort of gamut of the different industries that use Journyx with GP. So the real fundamental question is, why is tracking employee time so essential? And what it comes down to is really there's 5 main reasons. The first of those is that people want to be able to track time so that they can measure their cost on projects, do better budgeting, better estimation on their projects. Second, people want to be able to bill their clients in a timely fashion and accurately. Of course, since you're tracking time, you might as well go ahead and pay your employees with that as well. So it's really important that it's done efficiently, effectively, and whether that's doing your time off accruals, hourly overtime. That's really the third main reason that people track time. To take that a little bit further, people also want to be able to track time so they can measure what their people are working on, be able to manage their resources throughout the organization. And then really the fifth component is around compliance. So some of the different, depending on what type of company you are, industry that you're in, we've got different compliance needs around government contract work, around Sarbanes-Oxley, maybe around HIPAA if you're a healthcare consulting company. And so those are really the main 5 reasons that people need to track time and why that's so essential. The problem is that, as much, I'm sure you guys are well aware, nobody really likes to track time. So the top 4 challenges that we've actually experienced in feedback from other GP customers is first trying to get timesheets submitted on time, trying to correct bad data and fixing broken timesheets. So a lot of your administrative work around doing corrections is probably the most the biggest struggle that people face when doing timesheets. The third is that it really doesn't integrate with some of their other business systems. Not only not with GP, but maybe with a third-party payroll system, maybe an external project management system like a Microsoft project. Being able to integrate with those business solutions is pretty important, so you're not doing a lot of data entry, which is open to, again, further error. And then the fourth one is that you really can't track all of your time in one place. So some of the options that are out there that are available, even with native within GP, is you track project time in one location, you've got payroll time in a different location. So just giving the end user experience, as easy as possible, one place to enter the data. Those are really the 4 main challenges. So what we've sort of talked about and came up with is the 6 steps to coming to this time tracking nirvana. And the first step that everybody sort of starts in is this chaos level, and that's where you can't get your timesheets collected on time. Paying people it's time consuming. Trying to make sure that your clients are being billed accurately and on time, and nobody really understands their costs. So that's really like the first levels is understanding that there's a problem when you're trying to collect your timesheet data. So how can we improve on that? So one of the first ways is decide who's going to really own the time tracking process. Sometimes that's scattered across the organization. So if there's one point of ownership that can really drive that down through the organization. Coming up with a master list of data. So, making it easy for your employees to track their time. Understanding what it is that you want them to track their time against. That's really a nice big first step, and ideally that can be driven by the information that already exists within GP. And third, and probably the most important way to improve on the chaos level is really educating your employees on why it's important to the organization to be able to track your time. It's not Big Brother looking after them, but it's really important so that you can bill your customers. If you can bill your customers, then they can get paid for that data. If you can better measure your costs, then the organization will be more profitable. So it's really important that you try to educate people on why that's important. That second level is where you have at least most of your employees tracking at least most of their time. So you at least have a basic idea of how people are spending their time, what they're spending their time on. And as people start seeing the benefits that the organization receives, they'll start tracking time more often and it'll be more accurate. So how can we improve on this second level? So some of the things you can do to take it to this next level is start to introduce the concept of putting in cost rates. Another thing you can do is start incorporating the tracking of expense data. So, you had a base level of tracking time on your projects to understand what people are doing. Now you're able to incorporate your cost into that equation, which sort of leads us to this third level, and where you understand where your direct cost. So at that point, you really understand your complete costs on a project from a labor standpoint, from an expenses standpoint. You're able to now start measuring your cost towards budgets that you have. And on any future projects that you have coming down the pipeline, hopefully at that point you'll be able to better estimate what your cost should be on those projects. Now, ways we can improve upon that is when we start incorporating some of your indirect costs, like overhead time, time in meetings, time spent managing the workforce, managing projects. And this will allow you to basically start spreading that indirect cost across all of your projects. So if a project manager is trying to manage 3 or 4 different projects, maybe that same level of effort managing those projects can be spread across all the different projects for that client. That's going to really allow you to get a total picture of your cost on your projects. And what that's going to do is that's going to lead us into being able to understand our per person, per project total cost. Now you can really start making some management decisions around that. You can determine which projects really are in need of some help, which ones are falling behind, which ones are maybe over budget. You can tell if at this point that resources are getting misallocated. Do we have too many people working on this one project and now one of our other projects is falling behind? And it really shines a light on how much time and effort the organization is spending on overhead, things that you're not able to bill the client for. Now, what we can do to improve on that is we can start interjecting the whole concept of putting revenue into the equation. And once we're able to start putting revenue into the equation, we can really start to understand our profitability. And that's going to lead us into our fifth level, which is revenue recognition. So what you can do at this point is you can start integrating your time tracking processes with your CRM solution. So within the CRM solution, this is where you're marking down your opportunities, things that are coming down into the future, and you can basically at this point then start to forecast what your revenue is going to be and be able to apply that to your existing costs to start playing out what your profitability is. Now, ways we can continue down that path as I mentioned, was integrating with your CRM solution. You can generate your forecasted revenue so you compare that to do your profitability analysis. Sorry, we'll catch up there. And really this leads us into kind of our final level and stage of the Nirvana process. And that's really billing and doing your payroll efficiently. So this is where you can really then take, so you're starting to collect your time data, you interject your cost, you start interjecting your indirect costs so you can have a true picture. Then you can integrate with your CRM solution and come up with a revenue forecast. And now to really tie this all together and come to this Nirvana, that's where you can start integrating your time tracking processes with GP. This really is going to improve the accuracy of your billing. It's going to improve the efficiency of paying your employees. And it's really going to help you understand your cost on your projects and your profitability within your client base. So how to improve from there, really, it comes down to that final picture where you can enter all of your time in one system, your project time, your payroll time. You can introduce concepts like data entry validation, which allows you to help cut down on having to do a whole bunch of corrections. You want to make sure that you've got really a lot of robust and multi-level workflow processes to send that information through a workflow process before it goes into GP. And then what it really all comes down to as well is, again, nobody really likes to track time. So as much as you can improve the end user experience, your data entry is going to be timely, it's going to be more accurate, and it's really just going to help you understand, again, what your costs are, effectively bill your customers and pay your employees. So at that point, that's our sort of our six levels of achieving Nirvana, time tracking Nirvana within GP. I guess, Adam, I can turn it over to you and see if there was any questions that are asked throughout the presentation.
That sounds good. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, and let's see if we have any questions that came in. Looks like we actually have a couple. First one is, I understand what you said about showing employees the benefits of tracking time, but how do I still get them to turn in their timesheets? That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's always a big challenge that everybody has. We've actually had customers go as far as like create incentives for people that do timesheets on a timely fashion, whether it be some kind of bonus or little reward or recognition. We also have tools that are built into the application that can do things like send email reminders to people or let people know if they're late doing their timesheet, because sometimes people just forget. You get so busy doing your day-to-day job that just a nice friendly reminder from the time tracking solution will help facilitate that process.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Let's see if we have another one. Here's one. How long could we expect it to take to roll out a robust time tracking initiative in our company?
So typically it takes, there's a couple things that need to go on. Depending on what level of time tracking that you're doing, it may take some level of change management. So, if people aren't used to tracking time at all, maybe they're tracking time in Excel spreadsheets, there could be some change management processes that you need to put in place. And that just depends on how mature the organization is and how good at people are implementing new policy and procedures. As far as implementing a good time tracking software solution like Journyx, you're probably looking at a 30 to 60 day window to successfully implement a solution like Journyx.
Great. Let's see if we have any more questions. Let's see, it looks like we do have another one. Who would typically own the time tracking processes in an organization?
That's a good question. So typically, what it usually comes down to is which sort of role needs to absorb the time tracking data. So, if you are in an organization where you're using this for financial analysis, typically that might be your a controller or director of finance. Again, the people that sort of own the data that's coming out of the software will typically be either the owner or at least maybe manage the team of people that own the time tracking process and time tracking solution.
Great, thanks, Brian. It looks like that's actually all the questions that we have. We don't seem to have any more coming in. So why don't we end here? Brian, I'd like to thank you very much for presenting to our audience. And for those of you online, I just want to let you know, too, that we did record the session, and we'll be sure to send out a copy of the recording as soon as it's been posted online. All right, thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brian.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Yep. Bye-bye.